went live.
Hey,
Let's go.
let's
What's
go.
up, dude?
Oh man, happy Friday. And
Happy Friday.
good to see you. Good to see you. And thank you everybody. Welcome to Art First. And it is another day, man. I'm excited for today.
It is another day. Yeah, man. It's gonna be a fun day. I'm excited for our guest today. I'm excited just in general for the first month of the year. I feel like a lot of good stuff happening in the space. A lot of good energy. Markets are wild. The world's crazy, but a lot of cool art.
Yes. And when the world is burning, we make art. Like yeah, our guest today is no stranger to making incredibly powerful art. Everything from street art to fine art, digital, physical pioneer, artist advocate, and all around really good dude. Let's welcome to the show, Mr. Thank You X. Hello.
Hey.
Welcome.
Hey.
Oh. We don't have welcome sounds.
Yeah.
And so. Yes.
You have the most powerful art because it's like you use like a blowtorch on it. Like,
dude,
that's like
I mean
pure energy.
I mean he uses all sorts of found objects that hidden inside in his paintings. Huh?
Actually, I was just gonna try and do it really quick, but then I'm like,
Yeah,
we just
don't
had
burn down the
bad
studio.
fires in LA. Probably not the
Yeah.
best time to do that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It's not
It would have
this
went
time.
real viral, but
Yeah.
no, it's so good to have you. And yeah, I mean, you've been in the space as long as we have since 2000, right? 2000.
Ended 2000, 2001, right?
For
Yeah,
what?
I remember.
Wait, what?
I mean, in terms of the Web3 space, I remember
2001? You mean 2020?
Did that? We don't know what time is anymore, dude.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, 2020.
Yeah,
Hey,
you guys might have been in Web 1 at that point. I don't know.
I got COVID brain stuff.
But we all just agree. Like, thank you for.
Yeah. I mean,
fact
you might have had one before, but I feel like, was it the collaboration with Jay and Silva? Was that your first?
That was definitely the first one with the New York piece, right?
Yeah, New York. That was my first piece doing
bouncing down the
Web3
street
stuff. It was funny because I got connected with JN, like we had already followed each other, and one of our mutual friends, Chris, was basically like, "You guys should do NFTs. Have you paid attention to this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know. I'm like super busy. I don't understand what that is, whatever." And then I looked at it, like once he sent me like a podcast, basically that someone had like explained it, and it was like an artist explaining it, not like a dev explaining it. So it was the first time it actually made sense to me. And I was like, oh, this is like CryptoKitties. Because I remember when CryptoKitties came out and I like looked at it for a second. I was like, this is so stupid. And my friend was like, what if we did it with art in 2017? And that obviously didn't, that fizzled out a little bit. But then in 2020, I was able to make that connection. And then he linked me and Jay and Silva because we had already followed each other. But then we like started talking and we decided like to do something together. There it is.
Mm-hmm. It was a dope piece. I remember seeing it early on and thinking like, what's going on here, right? Like,
it was fun. Yeah,
it was a real defining piece of the Nifty Gateway era. I feel like, especially there was one that's like low on the ground where it's bouncing towards it.
The open edition one was
it was like always on the top of the charts of whatever.
And there was only 200 of them. But I say only 200. That one only has 10. But yeah,
it was pre-2021 open edition.
I think it was like, when an open edition, it's the Avenue of the Americas right there on the middle row on the right. So this was such a cool era because it was like you put it out for like, I think it's open for 2 minutes only.
Yeah.
Like you put it on
frenzy
for 2 minutes and it's just chaos. And I had no idea what to expect. But I remember at that time, because I'd been following Beeple for so long, when I saw that he was doing a drop, when he did it in like November 2020, I think, we had already had our drop locked in. And I just remember being like, oh, like it's a wrap. Like all the liquidity just left to people in 2020, you know, like
it would feel like that, but
it did because it's such a small space. And at the time it was just like, you know, we're sitting in clubhouse rooms talking about NFTs to like 15 people.
Yep.
But yeah, man, I miss this piece.
I mean, it was a cool piece to see, because it was like, it introduced sort of like the duality of the type of work you do, where it's not just physical. It's physical. You do, you know, amazing paintings, but then you also really incorporate, like, you know, the 3D aspect to it. Like this piece, one of your more recent pieces, which is just absolutely gorgeous. I'm not going to be able to play
the consistency though. Like I've never looked at those back to back like that, but you can see like
the framing,
everything you see like behind me, like everything starts as like a painting, you know? So I think that's important for me, because I'm like, when you look at like a list of digital artists, I'm not like listed as a digital artist because I think of myself as a painter, you know? And so, but then I try to figure out like how to expand and bring things into the digital world, but still have it feel like it's a physical object, like a physical painting, you know?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting about that Avenue of the Americas one too is that, to me, it kind of reflects this early and current thank you X in a weird way. Because when I think of your older work, it's more graphic, it's more precise, it's more kind of straight lines, creating these grids, using the same colors and kind of visuals. But now your work feels a lot more kind of loose and abstract and textural in a way that you see it in the boxes here, but the boxes still have that clean black line on the edge there.
Yeah, it's funny. So that actually kind of tells a deeper story. So like when I was doing like street art stuff, I was basically like, I had hit a point where I wasn't inspired by that like world anymore. And this is kind of like when, like maybe like a year or two after Exit Through the Gift Shop came out, and it became just like a very like watered down, you know, world, I guess. Like everyone became a street artist, and it just became this thing, like a lot of parallels to like what happened in NFTs as well. But I was very inspired at the time by like minimal or like abstract, like super abstract stuff. But I felt like it was too big of a jump to go from like these stencils that I was making or portraits that I was painting to go into something that was like completely minimal or abstract. And so these cubes actually like were inspired by like, I loved the idea of when an artist owns like a pattern, like when you see a pattern and you're like, oh, that's like a Frank Stella piece, or that's like a, you know, so-and-so. And so for me, like this became my pattern, but you can always kind of see in it that I really wanted to be more abstract, but I felt confined by these like borders, which are the cubes. And it was like, they all want to break out, but they're like being confined, which it was necessary to tell the next story. But it was like the cubes were like this vessel to get to the abstract, if that makes sense. And so what was cool is when I started making NFTs, I was like, well, the cube is a very, you know, like
it is your thing,
a symbol that I can use. And it was funny because like in LA, I would paint all these cube murals and like all the stuff. And like people would be like, oh, you're the cube guy. And then when I came into Web3, it's like hundreds of cube guys. You know what I mean? Like I saw like
there were a few cube guys.
Smaller, you know, like I saw like all the people making cubes, and I was like, me and Justin always go back and forth with like, we like try to backdate like who did cube first. Like in 2010 was my first cube, you know.
He can own lions. He can be the lion guy.
Yeah, I mean, look, we can share cubes, but it's funny because it's like, you know, like when you open up like the first object in like Cinema 4D is like a cube, and it's like, so that's what everybody starts with. So it's funny that it's like, like I was like, oh great, like I'll bring cubes in, and like then it's like, oh shit, like I'm not alone here anymore. But I did feel like that was kind of like my entry point to like what I would like. That was like the closest thing to like a similar artwork that I would see was like like the cube form, like once I started paying attention more.
You're also one of the few artists that I saw in the space that actively decided to incorporate the gallery element into the piece itself, which I thought was a really cool idea.
So this one, for instance, that was like a very strategic move, because what I wanted to do is, like, at the time I'd only done collaborations with Jay and Silva, which like gives you this safety net of like, you know, both of you can kind of think differently than your normal style. And the perception is like, oh, that's because it's a collaboration, and maybe that idea leans more Jay and Silva, or for him, he could be like, oh yeah, that's like Thank You X, kind of like his little touch. But when it's something that's your own, you kind of have to be like, okay, what's my voice here, and what's my like thing? And so when I did my first solo drop, which was like my third NFT drop, the concept was like, what's my pitch deck? What's my like interactive pitch deck for a museum? And like, if I could put together like a dream, you know, like as opposed to just like mocking up a PDF, like if I could send this to a museum being like, hey, so I'm taking over your whole museum, here's what I want to do. Like each piece is that, but it's like, you also then get to sell that. That was kind of the concept. And that's why in this drop, I like created the concept of, that they all live in this museum called the Convergence Museum, which is the convergence of the physical and digital, which now is such like a watered down thing. But at the time, you know, there wasn't a lot of physical stuff in the space. And so like, I knew that that was like my strong suit, was physical. That's why you see everything from like, there's spray paint cans in there, but then there's like the computer tied to it. That's like almost like feeding the piece. And it's the same image that's on the computer in this one. It's just like a very like 8-bit version of it. So yeah, all like my story was kind of always like this, like, what's your dream scenario kind of thing? Like, what's your pitch deck? And then it kind of moved into, okay, like what if, like now, then people started like actually displaying stuff on screens more. And then it was kind of like, Brian, like what you were saying, like the newer style where it's like, it's the full piece. It's not like a scene. So like I go back and forth, you know, but like when I think like, oh, this should be displayed on white walls or on Atomic Form back when they had screens, like it was like, that's like what my concept was like, this can be displayed in a home, and now your home is the Convergence Museum kind of thing, as opposed to like, it's on a TV somewhere, and then like the artwork is like, you know what I mean? It's like too meta. It's like, if this was to go on a wall of a museum, now it's showing a wall of
a museum in a museum. This could just,
which actually could be an interesting piece if you just kind of, if it's just like this echo, like there's two mirrors, you know, and it just goes forever. Yeah.
But it did feel like there needed to be a bridging of that gap before getting to this place, like understanding. And also there really weren't that many screens available, right? And there still aren't that many, but like with more and more becoming acceptable, it feels more appropriate to sometimes just have the art itself speak for itself. Like,
it's funny you mentioned that, because at the time, in that same drop of Control, the last piece, when it was the first solo piece, it was also like, I really wanted to incorporate a physical, like an actual physical element, which was like the painting. And I hadn't seen it done like that. And I remember like the conversations with Nifty Gateway was like, I don't want to use the term drop. I want to use the term like show. Like I wanted it to be like an art show. There was 5 paintings that were one of ones, and they each had a screen built in. And back like to the, one of you said like there wasn't many screens at the time. It's like, I talked to like every screen company at the time, and I was like, hey, I don't know if this is possible, but I want to like put these screens and embed them in the painting or like paint on them. And I didn't know how I wanted to do it yet. And then when Greg Mike did like a big partnership with Nifty Gateway, or with Infinite Objects, I was like, I had already known about Infinite Objects because people did stuff with him. But then when he did it, it felt like more accessible because like I already knew him. Whereas like I didn't like, I knew who people was, but it wasn't like I could DM him and be like, hey, like, what's that company? Do you think you could link me? So I asked him a bunch of questions.
Right.
Whereas Greg was just like, yeah, let me link you right now with Roxy. And so he linked me, and I just like pitched them the idea, and they like, actually it was really cool. They just sent me like a broken screen so that I could start essentially building out the back without having to like ruin it, and make sure that that's what I want to do. And that was a huge moment for me where I was like, it felt like home for me. Like, oh, okay, like I'm really hitting like what is like defining my place here. And it's like this actual convergence as opposed to just like a digital room, right? This was actually one of the first pieces that I did like the full screen on. But yeah.
So this
painting, it's funny. So this painting was in a show I did in New York. And when it was hung up, my wife was like, hey, you can't sell that piece. And I was like, what are you talking about? It's like one of my best pieces, I think. And like, she was like, we need that piece in our house and you can never sell that piece. And she's never said this to me before. And so I didn't there's a guy who wanted to buy it, and we convinced him to buy a different piece because my wife really wanted this, and it sits in our entryway still. And so like, I'm a believer of like not having multiple ownerships of the same image. That's like my personal thing. And so like, I felt like this had never gotten its justice because I wanted it to be sold to like a cool collector. And so that's why I decided, and I told her, I was like, hey, I approached her, I was like, hey, I'm selling that piece. And the original piece was called Moving or Being Moved. And so I told her I was selling it, but I didn't tell her that I was doing it digitally. And then she was like freaking out. She's like, no, it's like, that's the only piece I've ever really begged you to never sell. Yeah, it was good.
So I have a question on a technical level, right? So obviously, when you're, I guess not obvious. So when you're painting, and you're using all different mixed media, I imagine there's, is it first of all, is there acrylic? Is it oil? It looks like acrylic, but it feels like
it's mostly
a whole bunch
acrylic.
Of things. Okay.
And there's some like latex, like house paint.
Yeah. Because you can feel that, like the texture and the buildup.
So I always want pieces to feel like there's multiple reds, or there's multiple blacks, and there's multiple blues. Like if you feel like, some artists are really good at like, like owning their blue or whatever that is, right? And it'll be like this very flat piece. Like Cause is a good example of like someone who, if you look at Cause's pieces up close, they're so perfect and flat, and there's like no texture to them. And that's like by design. And I am the opposite, where I want you to be able to like look at it and see like depth to it. And so like, without having it be like some heavy body acrylic paint, I decided to do it with like multiple like mediums, like whether it's like one's matte, one's, satin, one's a little heavier, one's acrylic, one's latex. There's some like spray paint in there, which I label as like enamel because it sounds better. It's technically spray enamel, but, and then
yeah,
like oil pastels and stuff like that. So I try to like make the depth without it being like too clunky of a piece, if that makes sense, where it feels like you're like trying to force a texture on it,
Yeah. And so I think it comes through in the digital pieces too, with like pieces like this, or when the other piece where things are flying, flaking off and coming off in layers. How do you do something like this, right? So like, obviously this is a different skill set. This is 3D. This is,
it's like a liquid sim and with like Houdini and Cinema 4D setup. But it's interesting because like this one specifically is kind of unique in the sense that it was an older piece. Whereas like after this point, as I was painting, I could envision this while I was painting it. Whereas like this one was made, I think in like 2017 maybe. And so it's like something where like, if like now when I look at it, I'm like, oh, okay, like I should get a high res photo of this now before I go further, so that I can like own the layers of depth and like own and like build as I go. And I didn't used to do that. I would maybe do some process shots, but it wasn't like specifically set up to be like, oh, this can do this now, and then the back layer is this, so
That's cool. You're talking about like essentially photographing different stages of it so that you can layer
exactly.
things and really like mess with the different layers.
Exactly. And then
That's cool.
when you see something like the flaking pieces, it's uh, it's generally like a composite of multiple paintings, as opposed to like this one is just one painting. So like yeah, this is like the first layer is a composite of like I think 3 or 4 paintings, and then with some like so like there's a piece of blue that you can kind of see on the middle left that's like a blue scribble, like a light blue scribble. That's my son's scribble that I put in there as a layer. So he like scribbled on a piece of paper, and I put that in there. And that's just like a Photoshop layer that's put on top of it, and then like put in. But the red piece is, yeah, like it's multiple pieces. And the thing is like when it kind of gives me a weird, like, not cheat code, but like it frees my mind of having to like have one owner of it, because it's more like like for the piece I did at Sotheby's, that's like starts off all black as one layer, but there's like subtle colors in it, and then it flicks apart and it's white, and then it flicks apart and it's a new like a multiple color one. That is composites of all the different pieces of the show. So like, as opposed to it just representing one single art piece, it like that now represents the entire show. So
that's cool.
Yeah, this piece
is gorgeous. I love this one.
Thanks. And it was really cool to do this because it was my first time actually like installing it with like audio. So we had like a whole room dedicated to it, had like audio, the lights were off in the room. You could walk in, and it was like separate from the rest of the show, and it kind of, people got to actually sit in there. And like I started thinking, I love like glitch art and all this stuff, and it has like a certain like, I don't know, like Web3 factor to it,
like a degradation, like almost,
yeah. But like when you see stuff on the street and you see like this kind of like fast moving, like whether it's an ad, you like, I think all of our brains have turned into like, oh, that's like an NFT, like so I like to try to push the opposite way and be like this is still a painting. Like this can sit on your wall and it's not going to drive you crazy if you're eating dinner and trying to have a conversation. It can just flow in the background, as opposed to being like, I
think those were my two kind of, there were two rules when I came in at NFTs, and very quickly it became, I'm not going to make art that would give you a seizure if you were just like, you would want to hang it up, and the other was it's got a loop. And these do that very, very nicely, like very elegant, right? It's like it feels like art that you would want on your wall.
Okay, well now we know you're not Xcopy, so thank you for that.
Maybe that's the subterfuge. Maybe that's
yeah. But like,
doxed.
But like that's the thing, is like I do love that art. It's just not art that I would want to put on my wall. And so for me, because a lot of times I look at myself as like a wall artist, like I want this to sit on the wall next to like a painting. And I actually saw this photograph when I was in Korea, and it was just like this like old, it was like a picture of like a really old room, and like in it there was like this painting that had just been like, it was like the worst old, probably like lead paint or something, and all the edges had curled, and it just looked like this most beautiful piece to me. And someone's like, that, like you, and I was like, it's just so cool to me, like that, like the decay of it felt so beautiful. And I was like, this kind of feels like something that could be like this should be moving to me, like, because I was obviously like, in Web3, but like it was just like this random like thing, and it was a random piece like in the thing that had been like, it was like, I don't even know, like an post-apocalyptic kind of like almost like a Chernobyl type like scene. And then but in the distance there was like this painting or photo or something that had been like just like so old and destroyed and like sun damaged and whatever, that it was like the edges were curling to it. And like that was kind of like my inspiration for this piece originally, where I was like, I feel like this should be moving, and I feel like there should be something else. Like it's revealing something else behind it that we don't see yet. And so like, I wanted to kind of do that.
No, that's really
it's a beautiful
cool.
piece. So my question, we talked earlier about how you approach your work, and sometimes it's grid and structured. And I think a lot of the work you're doing now feels unstructured, but is it? When you approach your canvas right now, because you're doing in all sorts of scales, are you going in knowing which colors you're going to lay down first? Do you know which quadrants you're going after, or do you assess it in the moment each time and say, I need to add something there?
I think it's a little bit of both, but the easy answer, and the one that I can think that is the most accurate, would be that it's like, if it's just like it's hard to say. Like if like right now I'm like in the middle of a phase, so now I know where I'm going. Like when I start a new piece, I'm like, I have more of an idea. But the way that I got to this place was just going for it. I knew on the very least, I knew I wanted to experiment with color palette, and step out of the comfort zone and like the safety net of the colors that I was either like known for, or that I knew people reacted to. I like do this thing where I'm like, oh, it's like people know me for this and I don't like that. So I need to like it. I don't want to be caught in like a routine. So I need to like break that routine to make sure to prove to myself that it's like, you know, it's me that they like, not that red or something, you know, something like that.
Right.
Just
You're not
like imposter syndrome vibe, but
yeah.
I was like, I wanted to go deeper. I wanted to like have deeper tones in this one. And yeah. So like, I just started kind of like making something, and I just started like working with these. I knew like I got inspired by like, I saw this like image where it was like a maroon, kind of like deep maroon red, and like a tan piece, like not even art, just like a website. And I was like, that's actually a really cool, like those two colors like really are nice together. And I've never done those before, really. And so I just started making peace, and I was like, okay, it needs a little bit of my feel to it. So I'll add like touches of my old red that I would use, or like I have like a few reds that are like my go-tos.
Yeah.
So I touch those a little bit just to know that I'm like, it's still me or whatever. And so I kind of created these pieces that were these deeper tones and more like tied to like earth tones and less pop colors, I guess, like not pop, but like primary colors. And it's like chaos, but like refined, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah.
Whereas a lot of like, look at this stuff. This is so state of the art was like, each one of these pieces that you're seeing is like, you know, a 7-inch rectangle of a giant 12-foot canvas, 12 by 15-foot canvas. So it's like, this actually taught me a lot, because I knew, like, if you look at each one of these pieces, I knew that each one needed to feel special. Like, whereas it could have easily been like the entire rectangle tile could have been red, and that's not that exciting for that collector. So I needed there to be something else. And this is actually where I started to dive into like multiple tones, because I'm like, okay, cool. Like right now you're seeing like this kind of purple pink, but then it kind of goes a little lighter to like mixed with like some like, I don't know, like tan. And so I started playing with that more. And if you look at this, it's very, you know, not clean lines. There's like messiness to it, but it's like feels good and flows well. This new series that I'm working on is like, there's no drips. There's no like, there's no extra like splatter stuff anywhere. Like, if I accidentally drip, it's like being cleaned up and like covered over. And like, so it's kind of a departure from that, but I think to me, it feels more like a growth. And you know, like, I think
it's a good thing to not be stagnant, and also not be too afraid to feel boxed in, and like to really just push yourself to get outside of what you either were known for or have become known for, and just kind of like experiment. Because otherwise, I mean, you could get really trapped really quickly. I would think, you know, I know that.
Yeah. And for me, like, that's how I got like into the kind of cube phase originally, because I was doing these like tributes to Warhol, and I'd done other stuff too, but like what I was really known for in like street art was this like tribute to Warhol that said thank you underneath it. And at that time, people would be like, "Oh, the Warhol guy," and I was like, "Fuck!" Like, no. And then it just like I said earlier, like, oh, do they like the red or do they like me? It's like, do they like, Warhol, or do they like how I portrayed Warhol? And so,
right, I think we have it here too.
I mean, yeah, I think we all get pigeonholed in various ways. I was the cloud guy for a while. I think most people will just associate you with whatever your most visible thing is until you show them.
Yeah.
And street art is an interesting element, or like an interesting, I don't even know what you call it, but like it's like how like in Web3 people are like, oh, build in public and this and that. Like in street art, you're literally building in public because you're like showing growth at each piece you put up. And it's kind of interesting where like people are seeing your evolution like almost daily, weekly, depending on how much like stuff you put out. It's like doing everydays, but you're putting them out on the street, and like it might be the same thing but different. But I actually didn't even think about that until I saw that picture of me like with a huge roller painting that Warhol face. Like, people watched me do that. It was like,
building in real time.
Yeah, I got the okay to paint on that wall. So like I was just doing it out during the day. People are driving by, people are stopping and talking to me, and they're like asking me questions. And it's like, I kind of like, if you think about like if you guys, like, when you're in your studio working on some tedious thing and 4 strangers come up that don't know anything about art and start asking questions as you're on your computer and you're in your studio, like that would be a very weird thing, as you're trying to create. So, with something like this, you kind of have to like pre-plan it more so that, it's not just a full freestyle, but it still gives that element of like people seeing it, people judging it. Maybe you messed up because of the scale and you're not used to it, something, yeah.
Well, the other thing I'd love to touch on is you're mixed media in so many ways, but you're also very mixed media in how you mint your NFTs. And I think you're usually one of the first people I see in the space to dive into something new and try it out, whether it's Solana NFTs or ordinals. What's piquing your interest right now, and how do you see all that fitting together in your ecosystem?
It's interesting. I mean, I've done a lot of experimenting and I'll continue to do that. I'm definitely like holding back more as a whole with like how much I'm into and that kind of stuff. That being said, I am launching on a new chain.
Oh, all right. Is this chain known yet?
Yeah, it's known. Okay. And I just don't think that there's been any.
Well, I mean, you launched on a new chain like a month ago. You were on Shape.
Oh yeah, that was last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, I guess it was like December, November. Yeah, a month or two ago.
I think it was.
But that was great. Your thank you Xcopy.
Yeah, that was just a fun thing I wanted to do because like Xcopy and I have always been DMing since like 2020, I think, and like we had briefly talked about doing like a collaboration in like 2021, but then it was kind of like we both got too busy, and then he became like insanely kind of like unreachable almost. And, it took off to like an insane level. And so I never really like thought about it again. I was just like, oh, he's Xcopy. Like I'm watching his secondary sales for like $1 million. Like I'm not going to, I'm not going to bother him with like, let's do a collab. But then when Shape came around and I was talking to the team, actually, so I was in Korea in September with DK Motion, and we were eating dinner and he was telling me about Shape. And I was like, kind of interested, kind of like, like pushing back a little bit, like rightfully so, like on, like you want to second guess kind of every new thing. And he was like, just talk to Han and see what, like, if you can vibe or something like that. And then like, he had mentioned that like Xcopy is doing something. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I was like, I always wanted to do something with him. And I was like, wonder if there's like a remix kind of thing I could do, or a bootleg where da-da-da-da. And he was like, let me hit him up. And so like, I actually didn't even ask him to do it. Like I asked him because they were already talking. And so he asked him if I could do it. And then, me and Xcopy started DMing again, and it was cool because he sent me like all the files, like the raw files, like
Awesome.
Before the drop had happened, and it was happening like I think like in 2 weeks or something like that. So I basically had 2 weeks and I was like, do you have any restrictions? Like, what can I do? What can't I do? He's like, I trust you, do whatever you want to do. And I think I'm interested to see it. Just send it to me, whatever, before you mint it or whatever. And by the way, keep in mind, I didn't know what his final product looked like. So he just sent me just the elements, just like the files without like the actual output. And so I had to kind of guess which ones went with which ones and how the eyes went with the mouth, and some don't have a mouth, some don't, so I just kind of put them together in a way that I thought was interesting. And then tried my best and like have even more respect for like glitch art, because I was trying to do it in my way where it's like still feels like thank you X, but then obviously feels like Xcopy as well. And I sent it to him and he was like, fuck yeah, I love it. And I'm like, amazing, cool. Am I good to go? He's like, you're good to go. I'm like, cool. And then I asked him, I was like, how can we label it? Can we call it thank you Xcopy? He's like, yep, whatever you want. Like, cool, do it. Like, let's go. And then we came up with a term like approved bootleg. Because I didn't want to call it a collab because it wasn't like this. I felt like that was like riding too much on him. You know what I mean? Like I wanted people to know that like it was a bootleg, but that he approved of it. And so I loved doing that. And so like to me with Shape, I was like, it was fun to experiment. And like, it was kind of like the only time I went out to a new chain and did something like completely crazy new. Usually when I do it, it's like, all right, let me do a one of one here and see what happens. Or let me do a collection here and see what happens. I guess Ordinals also was that, because you have to keep in mind of like sizing and inscription costs. And I had to like, almost like it's hard because you have to like dumb your pieces down a little bit to like fit within these like, kind of like parameters. Unless you want to pay like $1 million to inscribe something.
But that kind of stuff even goes back to early NFT days, right? Like, when you had to make a GIF that was, incredibly small size, or file size on super rare being so small, like all of that. It's kind of full circle in that, like the way the tech moves.
Yeah. So yeah, like the next thing I'm doing is a newer chain. But I think it's not like a new chain, but it's newer. And it's interesting to me because it's not looked at as like an art chain. And that's what I see interest in. That's when I went to Solana originally in 2021 or 22, I think. I was like, oh, there's not a lot of like, there's not a big one of one like community here. There's one of one sales, but like what Solana was known for was like PFPs and like, kind of like second rate what was happening on ETH. People would like make 100 different, Android versions of that on Solana. And there was some cool stuff, but it wasn't like, I don't know, like like a fine art.
It wasn't a fine art chain.
Yeah. Exchange art hadn't really taken off yet.
Yeah. And actually, so I was like, oh, well, like, maybe that's good. Like, it's like,
because you did it with Magic Eden, right?
Yeah. And so I was just like, let me dive into this community and see what's up. And like, I was just curious about it. And it's not like, I don't know, like I didn't know if it was going to be great or fail. And every artist that I was friends with, probably even you guys, because I think we were talking at the time, like everyone's like, why Solana, man? Like, what are you doing? And then like what happened is like when that sale did pretty well, a lot of artists were like, hey, can you link me with some Solana people? And how do I do something?
Sure.
And I think it's interesting because like, we're so like, obviously most of us are like known as like dropping on ETH, and there's so many other ecosystems out there that like maybe even look at us like ETH artists, just like how like maybe some galleries look at us as NFT artists. And so like, I think by doing these things like cross chain, and like help us just become artists.
Yeah.
And I think it like, once you start doing it all over these things, like that's why I say like, when there's a list of like the top 500 digital artists, like I might not be on there because like I don't ever call myself like a digital artist. And like, I just say like, I'm an artist. And you know, maybe that hurts me sometimes, but I truly think in the long run and that's how it's going to be. And so like, I think by like going to a new chain, it breaks away from that person being like stigmatized as like, oh, that guy's an ETH artist. That guy's a salon artist. This guy's big on ordinals. This guy's big over here. So, which obviously like everyone's going to drop where they're comfortable with and like kind of where their own community is. But yeah.
I don't think it hurts you. I think it helps you.
Yeah.
Seeing how you've operated. Like I go to Art Basel and I hear random strangers be like, we got to go check out Thank You X's work. You know, so you have this cross appeal to both spaces in a very important way that I would say very, very few artists have in this space. Many try for it, but you kind of came into the space already cemented. And
see, like
and we're able to juggle both.
Misconception. I think it's a misconception because a lot of people will be like, oh, he was already like this known artist in fine art. And the reality was I was surviving and doing okay, but I wasn't like thriving as like this like big artist. I actually really only started getting attention from, you know, what I would look at as like the traditional art world. That is like, when I say that, I mean like not just like a local gallery that shows people, but more like a higher end gallery or institution that like shows at art fairs. And this like, that's like has this reputable kind of like, you know, reputation. And like that only happened when I started doing well in Web3.
Interesting, because a lot of those traditional galleries, I think about like your Hans Zimmer collaboration with Philips, you know, that not many Web3 artists have been in Philips. I think that's like a lot of us has been in Christie's and Sotheby's, but that's like a really weird one that like for some reason it's barely touched the Web3 space. And I think that was weird that
they were like, I think they were like maybe one of the earliest though too, actually.
Yeah, they were.
They're just they work more boutique style rather than like how Sotheby's and Christie's are just like machines and just like they have hey, there's a digital, you know, digital auction, and then that ends and they're like, hey guys, we actually have this other generative auction now. And it's like, oh wait, you just did. And it kind of seems like it's always in rotation. I mean, candidly with that, we had the original, I don't even know if I've ever said this, but like the Hans Zimmer collaboration was supposed to come out on Nifty Gateway. That was the original, like we had a drop date, everything. As we started talking more, I was like, I talked to like my agent, Leslie, and I'm like, I feel like this could be the opportunity to move off Nifty Gateway. Because at the time I'd only worked on Nifty Gateway.
Got it.
And I was like, this could be something where this could be our moment to like maybe bring this to the auction house. And Mad Dog Jones had worked with Philips. And so I was like, they're a player in the game. I know that. I didn't know them, but I knew that they're a player in the game. So what we did is we put together the concept and it was all ready to go with Nifty. I called Nifty Gateway and I was like, hey, actually before I even called them, I like talked to the auction houses. So I didn't, and by the way, I had never talked to the auction houses before that, but my agent was able to like get in touch with them. And so she basically got us linked with Philips, Sotheby's, and Christie's. And we pitched it to all three of them. And Sotheby's really loved it, but they said, we have something, you know, too close. Can we do that? Can we do it in the fall? And then Christie's just said, no, that we're not interested. And then Philips was like, we love it. We have something, but we'll move that to put this here. And I was like, we're going with Philips because that fit the timing. Because at the time it was like, if you wait till fall, who knows what the market's going to be, what this and that. And by the way, like when we did the drop, it was technically considered a bear market in 2021, which looking back is funny. But like July in 2021,
that summer was rough. Yeah,
it was not a good time. But it mattered to me more that we were doing it like in the moment, as opposed to being like, okay, cool, this will be good for like 6 months from now, and then we can build some other stuff. It was like, we have to do this. This is done. Like, we have to put this out while like this is hot and whatever. And also like Hans had like a very strict schedule. It was the craziest thing. I've never worked for someone like this, where he's like, he had a social media like window that he's allowed to post about stuff in, that like, and then after this date, he's only allowed to like promote. I mean, he could tweet like personal thoughts, but if it's promoting something, it can only promote like Dune, you know, like it was like that. I was
Interesting.
in between.
It's got schedules, man. Yeah.
It was crazy.
Contracts.
And so like it was in between Dune being promoted, like that work was already done, but like the movie was coming out. And so like it was in between the promotion period of that and then the creation period of the new Lion King. And so I'm sitting here with this window and I'm like, well, we can't do fall. We only have this window. I was like,
Right.
like Ann Phillips is dope. Look what they did with Mad Dog Jones. We talked to their team. They were super great. And so we went with Phillips. And yeah, it was great. And I loved working with them. And actually what I liked about them is that you'd seen Sotheby's do like a group drop and Christie's do like a group drop. But what I liked about Phillips is they were like, here's Mad Dog Jones.
Yeah.
And you're like, cool. Like that felt like they were just elevating him as opposed to like casting a wider net. And I think as an artist, that's a more challenging when it's all on you, but also like lifts you up more too. And so, yeah, that was my first time ever working with an auction house. And that was the first time I felt somewhat like accepted by like what I looked up to always as the art world. And that just put a lot of different eyeballs on me from that world, especially because I entered it with Hans Zimmer, which gave it like this other weird element. I think if it was just me, it wouldn't have even been as impactful to the eyes of the art world that I was doing something with Phillips. But because like they might not have heard of me, but then they see my art and they're like, okay, cool, love it or hate it. But also Hans Zimmer, no one hates Hans Zimmer.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
The power of collaboration.
Yeah. And
the power of lifting up other artists.
And it was just cool because Hans Zimmer's like first crypto, like public crypto adventure, like working with his team to set up an ETH wallet with him, which is incredible. And yeah, just like talking to him, like when I met with him, it was like, he already knew about NFTs. And I thought I was just going to sit here and get like a new or like an old song from an old soundtrack that like didn't make the cut. That he was like, I have this one laying around that's 30 seconds long, make something to it. Yeah. But he literally was like, if you think I'm just going to send, like, I didn't bring that up, but when I was sitting with him, he goes, if you think I'm just going to send you something, then you're fucking crazy. We have to build this from scratch. And I was like, yeah, let's fine. Like, that was super exciting to me.
That's awesome.
But then, but we were, because Sotheby's liked what we were doing and the just timing didn't work out. The idea was like, well, you still have that fall slot. Like what's going on in fall? Let's do something where we, like, what if I helped curate something or like, cause they asked me, would you do a solo thing with us then? Not with Hans or anything, just a solo thing. I was like, I'm not ready for that. And I don't think I'm at that level. So like, but what if I could curate something instead? And like, because I'm known as this like physical digital, everything, we called it like a modern diptych. And basically it was like everything that was shown was a physical piece in the gallery. And then it was accompanied with a digital artwork. So we had a mixture of traditional and digital artists, but like, you know, people like Victor Mascara, who in the Web3 world is known as this like really cool digital artist, but most people don't know that he's like an insane painter. Like maybe one of the best painters in Web3, I think. And I was like, Victor has to be in the show because like people didn't know him as a painter, you know? And so I wanted to highlight that kind of stuff and people who were working in both mediums. And yeah, so that's how I was able to then get in with Sotheby's, was based on the original Hans Zimmer thing. So yeah.
No, I'm always amazed at how you operate in the space. Cause like you said, you're blending the traditional and the physical world. You're curating, you're producing, you're investing, you're experimenting. I feel like all of us learn from you in many ways. And so you always do it in such a professional manner that it's always very inspiring.
Yeah,
I'm sorry if I led you down a wrong path.
Well,
a false hope.
Definitely not.
Well, I would say like one thing about that is like, I appreciate you saying that means a lot, but like, because I often think like I don't belong anywhere because I don't have like a strong like foundation like on one side of the fence, if that makes sense. I feel like my foundation is the fence. And so
I think that's the biggest strength in the space. I think being able to play in all those playgrounds effectively is what keeps you around.
Right. But then you have some like kind of more purists who like in 2021, when I did my first like solo drop that had the physical pieces attached to it, they were like, collectors were like, yeah, don't do that. That's not a good idea. Like, we don't want that here. And like, we only do this, like, we don't care about physical. And I was like, all right, well, appreciate you. I understand you're not going to be bidding on this, but like, I am going to keep doing this because that is what I'm doing. Like, that is my art, And so, like, if someone's like, yeah, like, we love the clouds, Bryan, but just can't do it here because we're not doing that. And you're like, oh, well, like, no, that's not what this question is. Like, I'm not asking you to tell me what to create. I'm showing you, and you can say yes or no. Like, that's the option. But
this isn't a client feedback session.
There are no notes.
To be fair, though, like, it's funny they say the feedback thing because I've been chatting with like traditional galleries lately, and like when they ask like, what are you looking for out of a gallery? Like, one of the things I mentioned to them is like feedback from like a trusted source kind of thing. Like, if I look up to you and I respect your opinion, feedback is great, and as opposed to like someone on Twitter who has never collected art before really, and they're kind of like, oh, this sucks, or this is great. Like, I love when they say this is great, but if they say this sucks, I'm kind of like, well, I don't know if you necessarily understand what it even is, maybe. But if they say they love it, then that's great. But I don't know. Like, I think as an artist, we want to be pushed, and we want to be like when I started doing the cubes, going from street art stuff. Like, I remember my curator at the time. I've said this like line a lot, but like, he came into my studio, and he was the one who convinced me to like stop doing Warhol, start focusing on like whatever your next thing is. And when I was like, I called him, I was like, all right, I think I got something. And he came in and he was like, yeah, these are really like this is a really cool direction that you're going. And I think this is something. And like, these pieces aren't good, but keep going and they will be good. And like, when you hear that in the moment, when you're like opening up to a vulnerable thing of someone who you like really trust their feedback, it's a bummer to hear in the moment, but that pushed me forward more than like I could ever imagine. And like, he doesn't even remember saying that to me, which is funny. I bring it up to him. He's like my old curator, and like, I like still like a very good friend of mine, like kind of like turned like art mentor. But I think Bryan, you met him. He's Seneca's manager.
Roger. Yeah, I met him in New York. Yeah. I get Adam to give me feedback. One last aside, going back to the physical thing. I was in Tokyo 2 weeks ago, and a collector showed me a photo of him standing next to a painting of yours. And I'm like, oh, you at a gallery? And he's like, I own this piece. He was so excited. He collected the most of your ordinals drop to get the physicals. His name's Scotch Fox.
A legend.
And he was so psyched about it. So, for all the collectors that don't want physicals, there's plenty out there that
I will say
like for them.
The same people who told me, the same collectors who told me they didn't want to do that, started being like big print collectors on Avant Art, and like they started really collecting physical stuff. And some of those people collected my art later on, which was funny.
That's awesome.
But I think that's just, and I don't hold that against them, because it's like, if you told me, hey, like, NFTs, if you told me that in like 2012, I'd be like, I'm a painter, I don't know about that, whatever. Like, that my digital world and my physical world don't meet together. Like, this one's for design and for like client work, and this one's for like what I'm making, So yeah, I don't know. Like, I think that growth is important for collectors just as much as it is for creators,
Yeah.
Speaking of artists growing, let's let Adam pivot.
Oh yeah.
That was good. That was nice. I mean,
I like that.
Yeah, let's lift up some artists. We'll do a little bit of show and tell and speed run through some of these. All right, here we go.
You know, I love
that. You got me?
I got you. You're back.
All right. Amazing. Thank you. That little ditty means it's show and tell time. So each of us has brought work that we've either collected or just think is really awesome and deserves a bit more of a spotlight. And so I'm going to go around the room, pick pieces out, and we'll just we'll talk about it. At the end of the show, we send out on our Twitter, on Art First Show on Twitter, links to everything that we talked about today. So if there is art that you really like, go ahead, give those artists a follow. And if there's anything you can collect and you want, go and do that too. All right. So thank you, X. We are starting with you, sir. And this is from an artist, June Red Thread, and it is Invisible to Visible. Gorgeous, gorgeous piece right here.
Oh, wow.
So what I love about June's work is that there's a constant theme of the red, but also like she can do stuff physical as well, which is really cool. And it's very interesting how she incorporates like her physical stuff and then brings it into the digital world as well. One of the reasons I picked her was so I'm curating. I don't know if I even want to call it curating, but I'm helping kind of organize a fundraiser for the LA fires and having LA artists essentially help raise money for LA artists.
Awesome.
And she's one of the artists that was very stoked to be part of it. And so I'm stoked to have her. I know she's doing stuff at, I think she's doing stuff at NFT Paris, but she did stuff at NFT Paris last year as well. And she's just always someone that like caught my eye. And, you know, she uses a lot of like AI, but then also like, that there's, like when someone's like, you can tell when someone's like just typing in some prompts, and then you can tell when someone's like their hand is touching this kind of, like they're going deeper on it, and it ties into something else that they're doing. So yeah, that's why
gorgeous.
I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's like waves mixed with cloth, like blowing in the wind.
Which like
really awesome.
I love a cloth sim.
That's true.
I love a moving cloth, so like
it reminded me of like glowing glaciers and
it is very glacier like.
Good stuff, man.
Cool. Yeah. That would look great on a big digital screen like we were talking about earlier.
Awesome. All right,
choice.
we're gonna move through to the next one.
Is that piece available on Foundation?
I think it is.
There
it is. 1.5.
There you go.
Very nice. She has a handful of really beautiful works.
Invisible to Visible. Yeah. I'm a name guy. Like I love when I see a piece that has a good name, because I feel like that's like such a weak point for me. Not weak point, but a part that like something that I judge myself on so much is like name. And like I'm so critical of a name that I'll be like, like if it has like love in it or something, or like the heart, like if it's something that like I actually really think like is strong, I'm like, oh, I'm so corny. Like I can never say that, But
it's always my last step.
It is it's the last step, and it's such an important step, but it's like.
Do you guys have a note folder in your iPhone that has art titles in it?
I don't.
I have a where I write them.
If I ever hear something that's like
that'd be cool.
A line in a movie, a line in a song, someone says something in an elevator, I'm like, that's a good art piece title. So I'll write it down.
The thing I've been doing recently is I go to like ChatGPT and I'm like, give me 100 names based on a piece that represents these things.
That's amazing.
And then I like pick and choose words that I like out of that list.
Wow. I mean, inspiration comes from anything. That's really fun though. Dude, Bryan, this piece here, I'm putting this one up. This is your first pick of the day here. And I got hypnotized by Netrider.
Oh yeah. So I don't own any of his works yet, but I just see his work on the timeline all the time.
Oh, I love that.
So good. I think it's perfectloop.tez.
Perfect Loop, yeah.
I'm super into the
sickest stuff.
the window animation, like like error message.
It's so cool to turn what gave us all nightmares
100%.
Yeah.
into
Dr.
fine art.
Strangelove.
Yeah.
Like this
Yeah,
is something
no.
that I would have accidentally downloaded like a wrong file off Napster on my
Oh my
family's
God.
computer, and this would have happened. And I've been like, I don't know how to tell my mom I broke our computer.
Yeah.
You just,
No, I just every time I see his work, it's so clearly him, and it's
Really
just
cool.
a great follow.
What's he called?
this
Perfect
is
Loop.
Perfect Loop.
Tez.
No, the artist.
Perfect Loop.
No.
Perfect Loop. Yeah.
Perfect Loop is the name of the artist.
I believe so. Yeah. It looks like it's drifted on here. Maybe that's his Tez name.
If I click on Perfect Loops.
Oh, perfectloop.tez. Yeah. All right. Oh,
Yeah.
this artist is sick.
I'm gonna have everything linked up in the end too. So
Well, I'm trying to follow in real time here, Brian.
Okay, do it. Let's go. All right. Good stuff. I'm gonna throw it out there.
Retweet
Boom.
the thread.
That's good stuff. All right.
I forgot to retweet this. I just retweeted it. Sorry.
It's okay.
Retweet us. Retweet. All right. Here we go.
That's
Here's
a very
piece.
cool piece.
I don't own these pieces, but I came across it and just like it hit right. My dreams are so loud. Gorgeous piece here.
Love this.
And this is Din Burns, I believe, is the artist. I believe it's AI, but
Really?
it's just with
what's
the
cool about
colors.
that is like it doesn't instantly feel. You know how like we all know there's like a lot of times like a look.
Yeah.
This doesn't. To me, this doesn't have that.
No. Yeah, I agree, and I kind of like it. Like at the end of the day, I've kind of like talked about this enough on the show that like at the end of the day, I don't really care what the medium is. If it sparks emotion, draws my eye, that's why I like a piece. But it didn't feel like AI. You're right. But I love the colors in it, the way the lines run
texture
through
on the background.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
Well, the lines across the face kind of remind me of Thank You X. It kind of has that brush stroke to you.
When I look at things, and I'm sure every artist does this, but like when you look at something, it's like you kind of look at the execution before the concept, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like you'll maybe not at first, but you look at it and you're
but you
how did they do this, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so like my thought process was like, before I knew it was AI, I was like, oh, I wonder if they started with like just this splatter and they're kind of like, oh, this looks like a face. Let me go from there. Or if they're, but if it's AI, I don't know. That's crazy.
Whether it's intentional or not, I love the brush stroke to create the frown / like sullen look.
The artist name is Din Burns, at Din DINBURNS at Din Burns. So good.
Oh, very cool.
Really neat.
A lot of their stuff is really cool.
All right, thank you,
Okay,
X.
so what's cool about their stuff? Their other stuff is like, it's like now when you see their stuff, they clearly have like a style of like the faces.
Oh, it's fantastic, right? Like here, I'll see if I can just real quick pull this over.
Oh, you don't like my
his name there?
third screen?
Look at that!
Oh wow, that's trippy.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It's so good. Yeah,
wild. That's cool. Yeah.
All right, so we've got a couple more pieces. All right,
that was round one.
That was round one. Round two, fight. Here we go. Noper, who we featured on the show before. Amazing. I love their style. But Shy Cars is just phenomenal.
Noper is just so. I just like. It's one of those things where you like. I don't know, like it's just powerful and weird and like quirky.
Fever dream.
Yeah, it's all the things, and like it definitely has that feeling of like right now there's like a big, I don't want to call it like a trend, but it's almost like a movement of like these quick moving AI pieces that are quick to morph into things that feel like one scene, and it's just done in a cool way. I don't know. I like it.
Yeah, it's different. His stuff is ranged. A lot of his stuff was this like kind of splashy explosion work for a moment. I recently collected his drop he did with Flamingo DAO, which were all still images that had this like shake to them, which was a fun direction. But I think he's also represents this interesting subgenre of the space right now, which is like him and Joe Pease and a few other people that are doing these almost like retro 70s MoMA artworks.
Yeah.
That you see them and you just feel like you're in another world that like existed prior.
Yeah.
Really cool. Very good. Good stuff, man. Way to go.
Yeah, we love the Noper.
We do. Brian, you're up next in round 2. We've got this piece here, which I could run from the start if you want. Portraits.
So this is a project that minted out on Ordinals yesterday.
And this is by
I saw still images of this on the timeline.
Rax on Chain, right? Rax is the artist.
It'll reveal tomorrow. So this is the placeholder character.
Oh, this is
I
just
believe what he did was he created a bunch of 3D AI 3D models of figures, and then he ran them through this code that basically converts them into emojis on chain through ordinals.
Wow.
And it's just crazy because they're if you can tell, Adam's controlling it as a 3D object, and as you zoom in and out, it also distorts the pixel size, and it's just a crazy thing to put on ordinals.
The emojis stay the same size, but
there's fewer of them.
But there's fewer of them, so it becomes more pixelated the further away. Interesting.
But really, really impressive use of recursion and ordinals and stuff. And it's relatively cheap right now. I think it's like $40-$50. So I'm excited to see what they reveal tomorrow. But I just thought, really cool. I did my first ordinal drop this week.
Congrats!
It's a 10,000 for this one.
This one, and it sold out.
It sold, I think, 6,000, and then they closed it and airdropped the remaining to randomly based on people that had collected.
It's crazy.
Wow. Awesome, man. Really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, very, very fun.
And congrats on yours, Brian.
Hey,
I saw that it sold out. It's really cool.
Very cool.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's fun.
I think that
it was like 14 months in the works. Took a while.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like people don't understand. Like they're like, "Oh, you're hopping on the trend," and you're like, "Oh no!" Like, yeah, like I was talking to them on the last time it was a trend. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was waiting for the trend to be dead. I think ordinals are at like a low right now, so it was like perfect. I'd rather drop when things are quiet, and then
then people can go and find that really cool special work from.
Exactly.
So this is really interesting.
The real ones are left.
All right.
Yeah, very cool. I'm still excited to explore more ordinal stuff, but
yeah, me too. I think that ordinal.
This one felt like a big leap.
Yeah.
I agree. This feels like something I've never seen like style wise on ordinal, so it's cool.
All right, I'm gonna jump forward ahead here. This piece is I fell in love with this animated piece. There's no actual title other than this door icon emoji. So a door. Elena Lazatina. If I messed that up, I apologize. It's adorable. Yeah. Look at that. There it is. I love it.
How it's made. It's Procreate or.
I'm not sure how it's made. I love the texture. I love the subtle animation.
The texture in the background almost looks like coffee stain. It's wild.
It does. Yeah. And maybe it is digital, maybe it's not. It probably is, but also
it is. But it feels nice.
Could be AI.
It's hypnotic, and all of their work is similarly.
All right, what's the name?
Ella.
Oh, cool.
Elena Lazatina. She's going to be ELAZUTINA on Twitter.
I love these.
But they're all just.
It's such a good collection. So they all feel so connected too.
Very cool.
It has that old film grain on it.
Oh yeah.
Just gorgeous. And look at it. I especially love the details where like right there you see the shadow pops of and the shadows in there.
That's cool.
Gorgeous work.
I love that.
I know I selected it, but I'm throwing good stuff on this one.
Nice. Good stuff. I think that what's still one of my favorite parts of Web3 is the uplifting of other artists, and it's not like acting like it's a zero sum. Whereas like in a lot of other industries, it's like, it feels like it's like only one person can make it.
Yeah.
It's so true. It's how I came into the space. I say it a million times now, but Bryan lifted me up, and I've saw it happen all over the place. When I first came in, Coldy was, Bryan was like, "This is my friend Adam." Coldy was like, "Oh, you seem cool." I'm like, "I don't know who you are. That seems cool. Thanks."
I think the success of the space requires more people to come in and have a good time. Otherwise, especially, there was so much animosity towards the space.
We got to stick together.
Trying to create it, trying to be competitive.
Those, have you seen the memes that say like, imagine you're mad at me and I'm over here just like, and it's like a picture of a cat. And I picture like a piece like this where it's like, imagine you're mad at me and I'm over here like creating this, like just like making art, like
this is the kind of stuff that would be in like a meditation app.
Yeah,
like calm you. This is great.
Yeah. But I honestly would put this on my wall. I think it's great.
Yeah,
same. Yeah,
and it has that like movement where it's like not going to be, too crazy. Like the window, like the arrow window one that's going, like might not be the wall.
Right.
It feels like a wall piece to me.
Yeah.
All right, we got round 3 coming up. Here we go.
I'm going to give this one 2 booms.
Nice. All right, A Manic Mind by Manic Art.
Nice.
Really cool.
So what I like about Manic Art is this piece, it's harder to tell, but like on some of the pieces, like actually, yeah, you can see it on the right, like the texture, like it kind of reminds me of my works that are these hybrid pieces where it feels like it's a painting, but there's a screen behind it. But I believe it's actually all digital. But I think that this artist could eventually, I mean, I do believe that they're probably adding paint elements to it. But I think this is just like a digital image, but I could see them actually doing like a show or something like that, where there are screens behind the painting that are, like this. So it was very interesting to me. And they even, on a lot of the pieces where there's like this glitching section, you can even see like they've created a shadow to make it look like it's kind of behind it. Like, so that's always interesting to me. And yeah.
No, this is really cool.
Yeah. I found this artist recently and we started following each other. I just like their stuff.
Yeah. It does beg to be like a physical piece like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like painterly glitch art.
Yeah. It's like kind of like it's like not too overwhelming. You know what I mean?
It's not. Yeah.
Like I don't want this in my bedroom where I'm like waking up at 3 a.m. being like, what is that?
The Francis Bacon character in your wall.
Just shattered brain.
But yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
I like the crazy signature too. It matches the manic vibes.
It works. I like the colors. I love
a good artist signature.
I stopped signing my pieces on the front. Like
you used to just do an X, right? Or did you?
I do mix. I used to do thank you X like really small, but I stopped doing any signature on the front now.
Interesting.
Do you guys? I mean, I think I know the answer to this mostly, but I started signing my pieces digitally a couple of years ago, like where I wasn't in the past. I like to have that on there, and I know Bryan, you got your pretty cool stamp. But
I would do the stamps on the editions for a while.
Yeah,
it depends.
I haven't really seen your signature on your pieces, your digital pieces, though.
I don't really do it. There's certain things that I've like hidden, like as like a texture. Like I'll sketch something. I'm trying to look around for something that I would sketch, but I'll like sketch something and then like add it into like like almost look like it's engraved in a wall in the background. So it's like very subtle. But I don't really like have like a strong signature on the piece because I don't know, like for me, I look at it like it's like an additive, and like for me the intention doesn't start with the signature, whereas it's funny because like that's kind of where I came from, like my whole entire name is from my signature, like that's how I got it. But now to me it like sits like as the background. So like I sign all my paintings on the back, and I'll throw like random X's in here and there, just but but I feel like it's kind of this thing where my goal is to have my pieces be recognized without the signature. And before, you would sign it to kind of like be like, I mean, at least for me, I would sign it to be like, oh, if you like this, this is thank you X. So, you know, whatever. But now I hopefully, I feel like maybe I'm at a point where people could recognize it, perhaps, you know, as a thank you X without the signature, unless they don't know who I am, but then they'll probably ask or something.
Yeah. All right.
I think I recognize your works instantly now. So I think you've reached that point.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think that's
thank
a good
you.
point.
But we also live in like a small bubble too. So even
I don't love putting it on all the time because I always find it like I don't want it to distract from the piece. Sometimes I'll like lower the opacity if it's digital. Like I don't want it to be overwhelming, but I think that we're in a place where it's so easy to just like share stuff around that if I feel like if I don't have it on there, I'm doing myself a bit of a disservice because there's so many people who don't know me, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think
it all depends on the piece. For me, it's a decorative element, and
having a stamp like kind of that feels good.
Yeah, it does come down to the piece. Yeah. All right, we got two more.
Okay.
Let's rock and roll through these guys. Here we go, Brian. This is not the piece.
Right. Ooh, I like that piece.
Yeah, you like that? You like
the
screenshot
of the sale price?
All right. So this is Eddie Wharton's TLX Galaxy, which he created with Transient Labs. I thought this piece was awesome. I love Eddie. He's an awesome artist and great with data. What these all represent are different transient lab drops over the last few years. Each color represents the year, and each one of those is a different drop. And the orbiting dots are collectors. And this is all live data. So if you mouse over it, you can get the information on the drops. And I just think it's, you know,
can you zoom into it at all? Or is it like, you can actually see?
Yeah, it's all interactive.
Oh, Brian, let's find Shattered. Let's find your piece.
Oh yeah, it's probably somewhere in there. Probably in the green. It'd be one with only one collector though, because the pack owns all the editions.
Didn't he break it up or something?
He broke it into 10 pieces, but he still owns all of them. So they're all still in one wallet.
So then I wonder if State of the Art is on there then.
It should be, yeah. Where would it be in the timeline?
Close to you. I don't know. Because I got connected because of your drop.
There's Traffic Jams. Yep. So it would be probably a few after that.
Yeah.
There's a, let's see. But I thought this was just such a
Is this all from Nifty?
No. Not Transient Lab Drops.
Oh, Transient Drops. Okay. Very cool. Wow.
So this was a free edition for people that had collected transient works. There it is.
Look
at all those collectors swarming.
That's dope.
And I think if you press that arrow at the bottom,
this guy,
something happens. I think. Oh, you can. If you type in your wallet there, you can it'll show you all the pieces
that you own on Transient
in your
contract.
Wallet.
That's cool. It's lagging my machine.
I fucking love like I would have never thought that this could even be possible as an art piece. You know what I mean? Like, and that's to me what I love. I love this fucking space so much
because it's all just pulling contract data. So I think Eddie did an awesome job here.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, because visually it's cool, and it's the tail of a dog. So it's like you're using the information based on other people's work. Yeah.
There's Eddie.
Wow.
Yeah. Shout out Eddie.
This is super cool. I think this is
really cool, man.
I think this concept is very, very cool. And I think that like even moving it beyond Transient Labs, like collectors, like there's so much you could do with this. Like, I feel like imagine doing this with like art blocks and then selling it as an art blocks drop.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Hit up Eddie.
Well, no, not me. Man. He should just do it, but yeah.
Oh, I've been talking to Eddie.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of cool things. I'm always inspired by these things. So
I think you need a sound.
Anytime we see this, it breeds ideas.
We do need. We'll take the recording of you.
Okay. Put some like echo on it though. This is really cool. Kudos to that. I love Transient Labs too.
All right, we have one more piece left. And that is this piece here that I found the other day. And it's called Where Am I? And the artist is Igba. Igba. And they've got physical paintings, physical paintings. They also have digital paintings, and you can see their style is consistently nice, like, you know, in terms of this sort of, you know, the color palettes, and but I really gravitated to their physical work in this, with the texture and sort of just like the look in here. And I love all the colors and the way this is broken up. Just feels really nice.
It looks nice.
Yeah. I like the little flower. It kind of reminds me of like Sky Golpe and how he like would play with these like portrait textures. I love the textures in this.
His pixel paintings, yeah.
Yeah, this makes me want to just like get the brush out and, you know, get a dry brush on and really just like make a whole bunch of textures.
I want like slowly over time though. Like my only thing is I want it to like be such a slow dynamic NFT that the eyes slightly move. And then you go back to you're like, wait,
like a Felix the Cat clock.
Wasn't it looking that way? But like so slow that you never see it. You know what I mean?
Like a year later, you're like, I think it was looking this way.
Track it to the mouse.
Ooh, yeah.
This is what I picture with this title. Where are you? Like I just want to hear like it, like it.
Where
am I?
Oh yeah, no, I know.
Yeah, this is a great
but I like the colors,
awesome.
and to be honest with you, like I'm in a very similar color palette right now.
Awesome.
You're earthy.
The maroons and the browns and the tans. So
the tans, yeah.
It's cool. Yeah.
Nice.
Very cool.
Good finds.
This piece right.
Ooh, look at that. Look at that.
Make that into a hoodie, man. That's some camo right there.
Ooh.
Think so? Oh, maybe.
That'd be cool.
You're good at that stuff. I mean, it's funny. I come from the merch world, but I've never put my art on merch. I don't know.
It'd be like a collaboration with like Bape or something. They make those like
I could see that.
kind of hoodies.
Yeah.
Or hit up merch.
I'm a merch.
Well, funny story. Well, no, I don't think I can tell that story. I love merch.
Well, this has been a ton of fun. You know, I really appreciate everybody pulling up. We have a bunch of people who are watching live.
Nice.
Very cool to anybody who's also listening later while doing laundry and whatnot. But man, this has been a ton of fun. Do you got anything you wanna push or kind of plug at the end here?
Yeah, next week we're doing a charity drop for the LA fire victims that are artists. So any artist who's been they're like lost their house, lost something, like their apartments, studios were displaced, anything like that. We have a charity NFT drop with I think it's like 8 artists, and we're dropping like basically like a blind mint edition where you buy one and it's going to be on Magic Eden. You buy one and you get randomly selected one of the artist editions.
Awesome.
Some really cool artists. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but Shepard Fairey just signed on, which is very cool to do it because he's
Very
LA.
cool.
And stuff. That's pretty cool. And we're just stoked. Like, I think it's a very cool thing that we can, what I like is that there's a bunch of different charities happening, and, you know, a lot of them have different directions. And I think that just like, for me, I saw people like Cleon Peterson lose his house. He has like kids. He lost his house and his studio, and that's his livelihood. And so I just saw like, oh, wow. Like, I pictured myself in that position, and I was just like, I would, you know, need help at that point, you know? So I just wanted to I had the idea to come up with something. And so actually Jen and I are kind of like spearheading it and putting it together and Magic Eden was nice enough to like help put the back end together, and they've offered to not take any fees and everything like that. Amazing. So it's very cool. You know, if we raise a little bit of money, that's awesome. I don't know how it's going to do, but I'm just stoked. And actually I was inspired by what Merch did with their thing. So I just thought a cool little twist that we're putting on it is it's LA artists for LA artists. And there's a handful of artists who have actually never done NFTs before, but are in like the local LA art scene, cool. Which is cool. And yeah, hopefully we can raise some money and get people, back on their feet a little bit.
Love it. Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's awesome. And is there a way for LA artists to reach out to you if they lost their homes?
So what we're doing is I'm sure if the LA artists lost stuff, they're already probably trying to reach out to we're donating the money to a charity that is overseeing that. They're collecting money from many different avenues to help with that. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, basically awesome. So it's even a bigger entity than you.
It's a bigger entity that we're just kind of contributing to. We're not necessarily like partners with them or part of it, but like
that's good. Like that's a lot of work.
The beautiful thing for us is that and I think that this is so powerful that what we have the ability to do in Web3 is we can act fast, and we don't have to be like, okay, let's file for like a 501(c) and like do this and that and da da da. Like we're just all raise the money. Busy, but what we can do is we can put an art piece to a thing and put this together with our connections with Magic Eden and da 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 and make that happen pretty fast and gather people and then at least launch something. And look, we might raise like a couple grand, but it's still going towards a good cause. And someone else is basically doing the work that they're like, our work is like, we can activate fast, and their work is like
better that artists aren't in charge of doing the business stuff.
When an artist can do what the artist does well.
Could you imagine if artists were in charge of charities? We'd just be like, like ADD. We'd be like, oh shit, I forgot.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And that's gonna be next week. Do you know what day?
It's either gonna be Monday or Tuesday. We'll probably announce a couple days before. So
sweet. I'll make a couple. That's gonna be great.
We'll tweet it out once the link is out there too.
Appreciate it. Yeah. And so
Very
it's cool. 100% of the proceeds are going, like, even Magic Eden's not, like I said, not taking any fees. None of the artists are taking fees, and we're all just like kind of like donating work. And some people created new work. Some people had work that they had already created. But yeah.
That's awesome. There's been a few of those going around. Like I'm also involved in a different one, which is really cool. Just the more of us that can come together to
that's what I think.
Out.
And like I was talking to a couple other people who are doing them, and it's like the concept of like combining forces. What happens is like I'm available this week to make work and kind of like mobilize, and I can like get people like Shepard involved. If it becomes a bigger thing and it like goes later, maybe he can't do it because of certain timeline and things. I'm just like, this is what we're doing. Here's some money. Like you go and you help like that people, da 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 da. And so I think it's great, and everyone's helping kind of like, it seems like everyone's kind of helping a different cause at this point, which is cool. So yeah, and I personally have known people who've lost homes, and then I know people who like didn't lose homes, but their homes are like, they can't go back to their homes for a year now because everything has to be starting from scratch, which is crazy. It's just like, I think so devastating to the point where like, we don't even know the impact that it's going to cause yet on like LA, at least, for like a long time. And it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where I feel like everybody knows somebody that lost a home in that, because everyone's, especially in the art and the entertainment industry, everybody knows somebody, and
there's so many people.
Tragic.
But thankfully we can all come together, raise some money, help people out. And I just want to thank you for taking the time. This was a ton of fun, man.
I mean, I know we've all been texting and trying to make this happen for months now, so I'm stoked that we finally got to lock in a date. And
All right.
Well, we'll see you in Paris soon.
Yes.
Have fun, you guys. Enjoy Paris, and send some pictures. And
we get to be on a panel together. It'll be fun.
Oh, nice.
The intersection of art and technology.
Working title.
Yeah. Do those intersect?
We've all been speaking on the same title of the same panel for like 4 years now.
I was gonna say, I haven't heard that one before. That's good. It's good. Yeah. Well, I'm sure it'll be awesome. And man. Until next time. Then we'll catch you all in the next show.
All right. Love you guys.
Oh. There it is. I wish I'd had. If you told me I'd had Enya queued it up. All right. We'll talk later. All right. Bye, everybody.